Last month, I had a federal employee who had been with the government 33 years. He sat across to me and expressed with full excitement another advisor had just told him and his wife to move the majority of his TSP into conservative investments. Sounded good, right? Because he's retiring, it makes sense. But that one decision would have cost him over $100,000 in 1 year. And he had no idea because nobody told him the power of his FERS pension and why it changes everything when it comes to financial advice for federal employees. So let me tell you what makes you different. Most Americans retire with two legs of a stool. Two. And that's a maybe a 401k. Most retire with just one. What makes you different is you have three. You have your FERS pension, you have your Social Security, and you have your TSP. The pension is important because the pension is not just some bonus money. It's not just extra money. It's the foundation of your federal retirement, which will allow you, if you integrate it correctly in your retirement plan, to accumulate a lot of wealth. And most financial advisors just don't understand that. And so they give advice that sounds good, but it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. So here's the thing. Your FERS pension is just not some background noise. It's not something that you can just ignore. It's something that you have to integrate into your retirement plan with the actual plan that creates wealth and not something that creates scarcity and safety. This is what I want you to understand. The most dangerous advisor isn't one that ignores you, or thinks little of you. Is the one that speaks to your pain, but doesn't understand what's possible. And this is why at Fed Legacy, we make it our intent to study as much as we can around federal employees and make sure we deliver solutions that are tailored directly to you. Because the reality of it is most advisors just do not understand the unique situation that federal employees face. Now, when that client came to me, they were full of excitement, full of optimism. They were fired up about the plan they had gotten. And once we broke it down, and I'll go through exactly what I did with him and his wife with you, so you can understand why that excitement turned to wow, but then even more excitement because they were able to see what's possible. So when it comes to your foundation and your pension, there's three assumptions that most people miss. It's wrong timing, wrong assumptions, and wrong coordination. Here's what I mean by that. When it comes to wrong timing, it's maybe taking your Social Security too early, right? That's a big one. It means taking too much from your TSP too early, right? Or too late. Another thing when it comes to wrong assumptions, just assuming that your pension is just not going to be enough. So I meet clients who they come to us and they're already drawing a bunch of money on their TSP because they think that their FERS is not going to be enough. I saw a lot of that in this past year when people were retiring early due to all the furloughs and RIFs and all the DRPs and things like that. All these acronyms are in my head. The DRPs and VISA, all those things happening last year. A lot of people had these wrong assumptions that their FERS pension would not take care of their income, and so they would withdraw more from their TSP than necessary. That's an example of a wrong assumption. Another wrong assumption is what the client that I'm talking about in this story they made. They assumed that their income wasn't going to be enough. So what they did was they moved a lot of their money into conservative investments to ultimately give them long-term income over time. But once we broke it down in our retirement analyzer, that actually isn't the case. They don't even really need income. They can more so invest more so for the long run. That changed their assumptions, right? Another thing, the last one we would say is wrong coordination. Wrong coordination is when it's sometimes you're taking money from the wrong account. So you might have a traditional TSP and you might have a Roth IRA or Roth TSP. Instead of taking money from the Roth IRA, you're taking money from the traditional TSP, right? Or vice versa. It just depends on your tax situation. So it comes to the three mistakes that most people make is wrong timing, wrong assumptions, and wrong coordination. And so you want to get those right, because if you get those three right, you can accumulate a lot of wealth as a federal employee. So I'll say this in a lot of our sessions. Our goal with you is to help you and your family to create lasting wealth that lasts beyond your lifetime and into your kids' next lifetime. And at the same time, not sacrificing the lifestyle that you can live today. And so I had a lady today, she's 57 years old. I was talking to her about 2 hours ago. She was nervous. It was our first conversation. She was nervous about her retirement. And I've been doing this for so long. It's like when I understand how much person has in it, when I get awareness of how much a person has in their TSP, their years of service, and a roundabout of where their expenses are, I immediately change the subject from how do we protect you from running out of money to how to now we grow your money. Because the reality of it is, when you put certain things in place, it just does not exist for federal employees. And so with Fed Legacy, I always talk about this financial house. And I'm going to talk about it on the majority of our webinars because it's an important thing that I just want you to understand. Because if you work with us or not, if you have this financial house in place, and there's a metaphor, but it's a structure that if you have in place, you will not have to worry about coming back to work. That's some of the fears that we hear the most when it comes to people talking to us in our session is, I don't want to run out of money. I don't want to lose money. I don't want to lose all my money in the market. I'm afraid of my kids having to take care of me, and I don't want to have to come back to work. If you follow this blueprint, it's designed so that you do not, that will not happen to you. So tonight we're talking about the foundation. The foundation is where that pension lives. The pension is secure money that will not go away, right? But when you have secure money that will not go away, that's great to have, but you have to manage it well, because the thing about it is when you have your foundation, the foundation is where your peace of mind comes in. So you want to understand that. You want to understand how much your pension is going to be, cost of living and all that type of stuff. And then compare that plus your Social Security to the bills that you have. The goal for those that are entering into retirement is you want to make sure your pension, your Social Security can cover your expenses. That should be goal number one. If you're like 5 years out from retirement, 3 years out from retirement, something like that, you want to run your numbers so you can see, all right, what is my pension going to be? What is my Social Security going to be? And the goal, if you can do it, is to make sure that those two cover your expenses. The walls where the tax strategies come in, is where the inflation strategies come in. The thing we see all the time is people make mistakes in retirement when they don't have a sound plan and they start making emotional decisions. So for example, the couple we were talking about earlier, sat in front of us, that couple had over 700,000 in their TSP and 401ks combined between him and the wife. They got excited. They were about to make an emotional decision to move a bunch of money into over 70% of their money into a protected account that was only going to give them between 4 to 5% per year. And the advisor had convinced them to do it based on income, right? And they didn't need that, but the excitement of the peace of mind that security would give them caused them to start to make a move that satisfied an uncertainty they had around whether money would last the rest of their life or not. And so one of the things you want to do is, when it comes to emotional decisions, you want to make sure you understand exactly what your numbers are, making sure you have somebody run your retirement analyzer so you can see exactly what your income is versus your expenses and run different scenarios so that you can see the long-term value of your money. So decisions get simple when you actually see the numbers in front of you. Decisions get super simple when you can see your own numbers, right? So this is why when we do our calls, through our TSP finish line process, we make sure we do a discovery call, and that's all about getting all the numbers right and things like that, downloading all the numbers from you and having it, getting it down into our questionnaire, helping you think through what some of your long-term vision goals are, helping you think about where you're going to live, because state taxes are different places, who you want to leave money to. We want to make sure we get all that stuff, because once you get that stuff clear, decisions are made. The decisions could get a lot simpler, and that's the goal. And then the next thing we do is we take you to a Zoom call, because when we take you to a Zoom call, we help you see it, right? We help you craft that. Because the thing is, you want to make sure your timing is right. You want to make sure what you're paying in taxes is right. You want to make sure that you're following the rules when it comes to the IRS, because there's certain rules that happen with the IRS that you must abide by. I was talking to a client earlier today, and she's been working with us for 2 years now. She's 60. She started working with us when she was 67, and she had spoken with another advisor. And when she got with us, she had moved some money with us. When she moved it, she just was like, I just don't want to build this advisor anymore. I want you to manage this. And that's what we did. We tried to talk to her about tax stuff, but at that time she just was already exhausted by what she was doing with the other person. We had a conversation. I was like, all right, well, you want to start thinking about this, Denise? And so she didn't do anything. But now she's 69. She's getting ready to go into her RMD stages at 73. And the rules matter, right? Because you can't change the rules. When you turn 73 for some people, when some people are 74, they're different birthdays mean different things. But at the end of the day, the rule is you have to start taking money out of your TSP in your early 70s, period. There's no way around that. And so while the rules matter, is you want to make sure that you get ahead of the RMDs, because if you get ahead of the RMDs, it makes a huge difference in retirement. And also, because you're getting a pension, when you do your Roth conversions, you don't have to do as much, which reduces the amount of taxes that you have to pay because you're not taking huge chunks to do it if you have enough time, right? And so, that's another thing that you have to understand when you're doing your retirement planning and why your foundations matter. Because if you have that foundation in place, it allows you to do other things in a systemized way that helps you in the long run. Again, build wealth for you and build wealth for your family. Right. And so, what I want to do is I want to stop a little bit early and kind of get into the question and answers ahead of time because I realized the last couple of weeks we run over on the question and answer, and I want to make sure we have time for that. So, all right. So Donna said, I got an email today that said I'm eligible to convert my TSP to Roth. Should I convert? Should I convert or shouldn't I? Well, Donna, it depends. Donna, what is your or Donda? What is your age? Because that matters to answering your question around the pros and cons. So if you tell me your age, I'll give you the pros and cons, or a roundabout of your age. Are you under 59? And then how close are you to retirement? And I don't know if she's there or not, but like, so I can answer this question for you though. So when it comes to converting money from your Roth TSP, from your TSP to Roth, the thing you have to, okay, John, so he's 61. So John, for you, right, your income, if you're still working, John, and I know your situation a little bit more, right? But I can give you an example. Since you're still working, you're 61, you and your wife are still working. So because you and your wife are still working, your taxable income is going to be high. You're going to be in a higher tax bracket. When you convert the money from traditional TSP to Roth right now, you're going to get taxed at the highest tax bracket. And so it wouldn't make sense for you to do that right now because once you and your wife retire, y'all going to go from probably high 24 to maybe 32% tax bracket, depending on where your income is, all the way down to the 12 or 22%, but in the lower part of that bracket. So for example, again, I'm talking to people all day. I was talking to a lady today and we had been working with her since 2024. And when we first pulled up her retirement analyzer, her taxes, when she was making around 141, her taxes were in the 24% tax bracket. But now it's 2026, she's retired and her taxes are now, her effective tax rate was at 21%. She was in the 24, but her effective tax rate overall was at 21%. Now that she's retired, her effective tax rate is at 9%. And we were able to see the difference because the last time me and her met was in 2024. Now it's 2026. She's retired. Her effective tax rate is at 9. And so now we're going to do the Roth conversions based on that 9%, right? And we keep it within that same tax bracket so we can keep it, so she can pay that low tax rate. And we might bump it up to like the 11% range when we were looking at it, but it's way below what it would have been if she would have done the Roth conversions back in 2024. So the best time to do Roth conversions, converting money from traditional TSP to Roth TSP, is when you retire. Because if you do it while you're working, that conversion is going to go on top of your income. So let's say you and your wife jump or the combined income amount of 250. If you convert $60,000, now it goes up to 10, and now you're in a higher tax bracket, and now you paid all that money on your conversion when you could have just waited till you retire and you pay a lot less. Another thing with TSP, with the new feature that they're rolling out, is when you do those conversions, what is said though, it hasn't, yeah, just started today, is you're going to have to pay the taxes in cash. They won't withhold the taxes from your account. So most other IRAs will do the withholdings for you. TSP, it seems, won't do that. So that's just something that you have to keep in mind when you're doing the Roth conversions. Any other questions on that? So again, the pros to it when you retire is that once you do the Roth, once you convert money from traditional to the Roth, that money is no longer taxed for the rest of the time you have it. So going back to that lady today, as we were going through it, we're going to transfer $60,000 a year for the next 5 years from her traditional to her Roth. And it ended up being around 190 is what she had, right? So I think 60,000 is five. It was around that amount. And so over the next 5 years or so, she's going to have a little over $200,000 sitting in a Roth account that's now tax free and growing for the rest of her life. And then beyond that, then after we do that first 5, then we'll start doing another amount, and we do it in gradual steps. So that as the closer she gets to 75, in her situation is 74 is the first year they start demanding the RMD, but then that next year, April, is when you have to pay that first buy. So it's really 75 that you have to make that first payment or withdrawal, I should say. And so the goal is to get all of her money converted by that point, right? And again, depending on how much you have in your TSP, obviously the amount that you roll over every year matters, is different. Also, where you are as far as tax bracket goes matters, because what we try to do is we try to look at your current tax bracket and make sure we stay within that realm and max it out as much as we can without pushing you over into the much higher tax bracket. So the pros of doing that though is the older you get, the less taxable accounts you have, so that you have those non-tax accounts, and as they grow, all that money is yours. And so, any questions about that process? I know we talk about it a lot, but it's a super important process because in 2019, when that 10-year rule got introduced, that 10-year rule changed how that money is distributed to your kids. Before, they could put it into a stretch IRA, and they would be able to push that money off so that they're not paying taxes on it while they're working. But now, like if any of you all call your parents have, and your parents have a IRA or 401k and things like that, if they would have passed, and let's say they had 500,000 in it, now you're gonna have to take 10 years to take that money out, right? And that money is gonna be taxable income on top of your income, which can push you into the higher tax bracket. It's good to get the money, obviously, but you're gonna be pushed into higher tax brackets every year, not only on that money, but on your current income tax. And that's just kind of how the IRS moves to get money on the back end. And so it's important to make sure that when you retire, you start doing those Roth conversions so that your family is not stuck with these huge tax bills in the future. And whenever as you get older, if you need long-term care, you need to draw money out of your TSP, you have a bucket of money that you can draw from that you don't have to pay taxes on. So that's the benefit of doing Roth work. Again, having a foundation in your FERS pension, understanding how your social security works, helps you have the clarity and lack and no stress to be able to have plans like that, implement them, and then also think about the long-term wealth, because that's what this is about, right? And so you want to make sure that you're able to have long-term wealth for your family, be able to fund your long-term care, and then just have the peace of mind the older you get into retirement. One question we get all the time is, when it comes to your TSP, how do you divvy it up the closer you get to retirement, or once you retire? And we always tell you, like, you want to look at it like you want a growth bucket and you want a protected bucket. That's important because yes, the market has been doing really good lately. Like, the market has been soaring. But as we all know, a bubble can easily happen at any moment. And it's also not about if it happens, it's when it happens. And what you don't want, and I've heard plenty of these stories, is there were people who were in their mid to late 60s in 2008. And a lot of those people were drawn on income in long-term care situations, and all of a sudden they're depending on this money, or had a plan for this money, then all of a sudden they lose 32% of it. And at the same time, they're having to pay taxes on the money as they're drawing it out. You're losing 32, then you're paying 20% in taxes when you withdraw it out. That's a nightmare for folk, right? And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that as you're retiring, you have a growth bucket and you have a protected bucket that goes into that foundation conversation. Because with that foundation, the money you would use for long-term care, the money you would use for income if you need it potentially, you put that aside in a protected situation. Now, you don't put the majority of your money in that situation, but you put a portion there, and make sure you have that portion there so that the money that you do grow for long term, you can invest that with peace of mind. And if the market goes down, it's okay, because you don't plan to touch that money anyway. And if you do touch it, is not for serious things, and not to touch it during that time. In particular, you could touch it while it's going up, but if it drops, okay, I'm not touching that. I got this other bucket that I'm gonna draw in while the market is consistently tanking. As the market goes up, you can then switch it up, stop taking from that bucket, start taking from the other bucket. And it's super important to have that strategy, because what we've seen is when markets are down, like in 2022, when the market was down 20%, we had people who were retired and they were panicking because money that they knew that they weren't getting any more money from the government, as far as they're not getting any more paychecks, but now their life savings is down, right? And we went through this whole growth bucket, protected bucket, to help sure, like, if this ever happens again, you don't have to panic, because we have this growth bucket that we're going to make sure you invest for the long run, and we can be aggressive with that, and we have a protected bucket. And people that are non-federal employees just don't have that luxury, because they just need the money for income. So they have to invest everything conservative. And most advisors are going to try to get you to move the majority of your money into situations like that. You don't need to do that. you're not like most people. Dr. Michael, you said, requested my retirement and received my estimate back. Ready to retire June 30, 2026. No doubt I'm ready to go and appreciate your assistance. Yeah, Dr. Mike, you did a good job, man. I mean, your stuff looks good, man. I'm sure you have no doubt at all that you're retired and be well, man. Congratulations to that. If we have no other questions, I'll see y'all next week. We'll always be on here at 7:30 on Wednesday nights, and we try to keep them short. I mean, the last couple weeks we went over, so I wanted to open up the Q&A a little bit sooner to see. But okay, I think we're good. I'll see you all next week. Oh, there will be a survey when I end this call that you can answer for us. All right, talk to y'all later. Bye bye.